So with the hire of Robert Saleh soon to be official, I wanted to take a look at some potential staff options for the Tennessee Titans, mainly at offensive coordinator. But before I do that, we need to get into a little bit of how Robert Saleh ended up winning the head coaching job, because let's face it, he won the job. He earned it. So let's get into that. Click. So one of the key reasons that Robert Saleh ended up winning the job is because he came in prepared with a plan that impressed general manager Mike Borgonzi. According to Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer, he won the job by presenting a detailed two-pronged plan for rising sophomore quarterback Cam Ward, in which he detailed what he needs to help succeed, and the right staffing on the offensive side of the ball, plus a contingency plan should the original succeed and the team loses the coordinator. Now, according to Breer, just as important was his approach to setting up the entire organization and his level of detail in areas such as sports science. He explained how he'd take care of the players while pushing them hard enough to create a callus. And through it all, he showed some of the presence and leadership that the football people knew owner Amy Adams Strunk was looking for, the type that Mike Vrabel brought to the building from 2018 to 2023. So at the end of the day, the 5-hour interview that took place on Monday afternoon illustrated all of the ways that Mike Borgonzi was trying to find a guy that helps build the program and build the culture that this organization is looking for. And after he came away from that interview believing, as everyone else did, that Robert Saleh was the man for the job. So since Robert Saleh is a defensive coach by trade, and that side of the ball is his specialty, it's very important who he hires to be his offensive coordinator, because that person is essentially going to be the head coach of the offense. And so let's take a look at some of the guys who I think make perfect sense for Robert Saleh to bring onto his first Titans coaching staff as the offensive coordinator. And we're going to start with Mike McDaniel, and we now know, based on a lot of the reporting, that Mike McDaniel is off the board. He will be the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers under head coach Jim Harbaugh. And so, since he's off the board, the next option would be, for me, Bobby Slowick. Now, Slowick was the offensive coordinator for 2 years with the Houston Texans from 23 to 24, but before that, he was an offensive assistant under Kyle Shanahan with the San Francisco 49ers, where Robert Saleh really made his name. Now, I personally think that Bobby Slowick got a bit of a broad deal at the end of his time in Houston. And I thought that he did really good work with C.J. Stroud throughout his rookie season. Didn't necessarily understand why he ended up losing his job, but I think that will be somebody that makes a lot of sense for Robert Saleh to bring onto his staff. Next guy on my list is Brian Daboll, the former head coach of the New York Giants. And there was some reporting about Brian Daboll that lends me to believe that it's more closer to reality for him than anybody else. According to Diana Rossini of The Athletic, the Eagles are conducting their offensive coordinator search with the understanding that Brian Daboll wants the Bills' head coaching job. But if he doesn't land it, expect Daboll to wind up in Tennessee as the offensive coordinator for Cam Ward and the Titans, per multiple sources. So this is something that has really begun to pick up some steam. If Brian Daboll lands the job in Buffalo, then all bets are off. He becomes the coach of the Bills. But if not, what does he look like as an offensive option for Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans? Well, it's worth noting that Brian Daboll loved Cam Ward so much so, he pressured general manager Joe Schoen to do everything he could to trade up to the number one spot so that the Giants could get in position to draft Cam Ward. The Titans rightfully declined all of those requests and drafted the Miami signal caller first overall in 2025. Now, should this hold, Brian Daboll gets an opportunity to coach the guy that he's loved for a while now. And I think that would be a really good thing for the Titans, simply because Brian Daboll is an experienced, veteran offensive coordinator who's done really good work with several high-profile quarterbacks across the league, and especially at his college days at Alabama. Next on the list is a guy who has experience with the Titans, and that's former Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith. Now, when he was in Tennessee, the Titans had their most prolific success on the offensive side of the ball, obviously led by everything running back Derrick Henry. But the offense was at its most productive with Arthur Smith at the helm, and that was the last time that they had seen any meaningful success. Could Arthur Smith get an opportunity to be an offensive coordinator again here in Tennessee? I mean, we'll see. Next on the list is somebody with one other connection to Robert Saleh, and that is offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers, Adam Stenavich. Now, he doesn't call the plays in Green Bay, but he has a veteran coach with a lot of experience, especially around the offensive line. He's somebody that I would definitely consider based on his connections to the new Titans coach. Next is somebody else who has another connection to Robert Saleh because he cut his teeth with the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan. And that is Clay Kubiak, the current 49ers offensive coordinator. Now, he's also in a scenario where he doesn't call the plays because that is the head coach. But I think he could get his first opportunity to call plays as an offensive coordinator here in Tennessee, should the Titans decide to go in that direction. And finally, somebody who I don't necessarily think will leave his current situation, but also has a connection to Saleh and the 49ers, and that's Mike LaFleur. LaFleur is the current head offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams, and so interviews are not going to be an option because they're still playing in the playoffs. But of course, we know that he is the brother of Packers head coach Matt LaFleur, with whom Saleh has a connection to as well. Is it possible for him that he's going to take an opportunity in Tennessee? I don't necessarily think so. But should they want to go in that direction, he's somebody that I would definitely consider. So before we go, I want to talk a little bit about the defensive coordinator role. Now, Robert Saleh has mentioned that he's going to call the defensive plays for the Titans, mentioning that during his time with the Jets, he didn't necessarily feel as connected because he didn't call the plays on defense for the Jets. He decided that this time around, he's going to do the opposite because he wants to feel more connection. He wants to have a more active hand in the day-to-day operations of the Titans defense. And so with that in mind, let's look at some names that could potentially help Saleh in a support role to be the defensive coordinator. And to me, the number one option is somebody who actually has a connection to the Titans. And that is 49ers defensive line coach Chris Kotsurek. Now, Kotsurek, to many people, has been the guy who has helped San Francisco the most when it comes to how good their defense has been. He joined the staff in 2019, and since then, he's widely considered one of the premier defensive line and pass rush specialist coaches in all of football. And so Kotsurek can do a lot with somebody to the caliber of Jeffrey Simmons and somebody with the talent of T'Vondre Sweat, two guys who have anchored the Tennessee Titans defensive line for the last 2 years. I personally think Kotsurek is a great defensive coordinator option for the Tennessee Titans. Second on the list is a guy who is the assistant head coach on the defense for the San Francisco 49ers and a former NFL head coach in his own right. And that's assistant head coach Gus Bradley. Now, if you're wondering where Gus Bradley came from, he was once the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars from 2014 to 2016, and a position coach for Bradley was Robert Saleh. So the connection there is very strong. Now, I personally feel, and some within the 49ers realm do also feel, that Gus Bradley is in line to be the next defensive coordinator. I mean, we'll see, but it's looking more and more likely that he's going to be the next defensive coordinator to take over for Saleh. But it's just another name to consider when thinking about this position. Third on my list is somebody who actually interviewed for the Titans job and ultimately didn't get it. But I would treat this as more of a fact-finding mission. And this guy's name is Jonathan Gannon, the former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, before he got the Cardinals job, he did yeoman's work with the Philadelphia Eagles as their defensive coordinator and helped lead them to a Super Bowl appearance. He ultimately didn't win, but Gannon helped them find a way to beat a nasty defense. And finally, another coach who just recently let go from an organization that I think could make a lot of sense is former Falcons head coach Raheem Morris. Morris is well known among circles as a well-known and well-respected defensive coach, and I think that's something that Robert Saleh could definitely consider. Now, all of this is speculation. Until we have concrete evidence that something is going to happen, it's all just conjecture at this point. But I feel, and I know the majority of people within the Titans organization feels, that Robert Saleh has a chance to make significant waves with his first Tennessee Titans coaching staff.